December the 11th, 1989. I was 25 years old, I had a full head of hair, and it was the day I graduated as a doctor. I'd like to tell you a story today about a series of events that totally derailed the career that I thought and everybody else thought that I was going to have. Always love everything to do with children. I love their enthusiasm, I love the way they smile, I love how quirky they are, I love the way they laugh when they're happy, I love the way they cry when they're sad, I love the way every single one of them is different, and I love their spirit. I also love working with teenagers, but one of the things that's always really disturbed me is how many teenagers I would see in my practice and how many teenagers I would see in the hospital where I worked who were really struggling, who were shut down, who were dealing with all sorts of issues, who weren't communicating, who were basically unhappy. I came across some research that was done by the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology. And what they did was they assessed something called subjective well-being, how people felt about their lives. And they asked all sorts of people, I asked thousands of people between the ages of 12 and 70, age-relevant questions, and basically about how they felt about what was going on in their lives, what they were doing, how their relationships were, how safe they felt, and how they felt about the future. And this is the graph that they actually produced. And on the left-hand side, it starts at 12 years of age, and it goes to 55 years of age. And what you can see is on the left, at the very beginning, at 12, is when a person is assessed to be the most happy in their lives. And then we see this massive plunge down to 16 years of age, and then it comes up and it sort of flattens out somewhere around the level that they were between 12 and 16. And this graph disturbed me enormously, and particularly this part of the graph. And what it actually tells us is that around about 16 years of age is when people, our teenagers, our young men and women, at that age, are the most unhappy at any stage in their lives. And at the same time, what we see, and what I was seeing in my medicine, was that this was also the time when they were most likely to get into drugs and alcohol. This is the time when they stopped speaking to their parents, when they stopped communicating. This is the time when risk-taking behaviour is the greatest. This is the time when they were basically going off the rails. And I was also getting frustrated because in my medicine I was dealing with a lot of people at the other end of the graph in their 40s, 50s and 60s. And when we really talked about what was going on, what we realised is that a lot of their problems stem from them being unhappy and not really doing what they wanted to do with their lives and having made bad decisions and health choices and therefore being either depressed or overeating or drinking or smoking or all sorts of different things. And my job was supposed to be to give them drugs to support them at this stage. And what we really saw when we talked was a lot of their issues stem back to when they were teenagers. So I started thinking, imagine if we could avoid this dip in the graph. Imagine if there was some way that we could make it different and the graph actually looked like this. Imagine if we got happier as we got older. Imagine if we got more excited about what we're doing with our lives and our relationships got better and our interaction in the community got better and we were motivated about what we were doing. Imagine how different that would be. And with my doctor hat on, I know that when people feel good about themselves, when they're happy, that is actually when they make better life choices. When they're more likely to do things that are healthy for them, they'll form better relationships, etc. And when people are unhappy, that's when they're more likely to make poor life choices. So from a purely medical point of view, it seemed very important that we do something here. So I started looking around to see, is there anything in Western medicine that actually would prevent this dip that we were seeing happening? And there was nothing there. But what I did find, that there were heaps of labels for kids who are in the bottom part of the V. We say they have personality disorders, attention deficit disorders, mental health disorders, eating disorders, anxiety disorders. We've created all of these labels for our teenagers when they're struggling. So I didn't find much in Western medicine that made me very happy around that. So then we started looking outside of the box. And what was really interesting was to look at what traditional societies used to do. And what I found was that every single traditional society all over the world, when their boys and girls were about 12, 13, just before this graph was going to dip, they recognised that they had to create some sort of coming of age rite of passage ceremony. And they did incredible things. So this is a young Maasai warrior. And they had these very elaborate ceremonies. And this boy, at some point, would have actually had to go out with a spear and kill a lion or a wild animal. And this is from Vanuatu, where they would build these enormous bamboo towers, 30 metres high. The whole community would come out. They had to tie a vine around their ankle, jump off, and the best jump was when your head and shoulders actually hit the ground, but you weren't too badly injured. That's what, and everybody was there watching and cheering. This is a Fulani woman from West Africa, and they had tattoos put on their faces, and it was done with a sharpened piece of wood, and she had to not flinch while it was being done. Maoris had all sorts of tribal tattoos put on their faces and on their bodies. This is from the Satemawe tribe in Brazil, where the young men had to put their hand in these gloves, which were full of bullet ants, which had the most painful bites of all, and then they had to dance around wearing these gloves, showing no signs of any pain. The Hamar men in Ethiopia had very elaborate ceremonies witnessed by the whole community, and at the end they had to jump naked over 4 castrated bulls, and then they were considered a young man. The Sioux Indians would send their young men out into the mountains on their own, fasting for a vision quest where they would find their future and get a totem or some sort of calling. The Mescalero Apache Indian girls would dance for 4 nights straight, all night on the last night, while the elder men would sing the entire history of their community right back to the beginning, witnessed by the whole community. And the Aboriginals had incredible ceremonies, and at a certain point, often the spirit of the young boy or girl would be painted on their chest. Now, we think this is ridiculous. We couldn't do this. It's too crazy. But then we look at what the young men and women are doing today. The X Games, base jumping, the highest fatality of any sport, is growing enormously. Tattoos that they're putting on their faces, piercings and all sorts of things that they're doing. Unbelievable hairstyles. You know, it's actually happening anyway. So what it told me is that there's this innate need for this process to go on. And then when I looked into it more deeply, what I realised is that there are 3 absolute key things that in these traditional societies they were looking to achieve by creating these ceremonies. And the first was that when their young men and women went through one of these rite of passage ceremonies, they gained a deep and profound sense of belonging within their community. They learnt the history of their community, and they knew they were really part of something. The other thing that they did was that they created a shift from what I call child psychology to healthy adult psychology. So they realised, you know, for a boy, that in boy psychology it's all about me, I'm the centre of the universe, I want all the power, I don't take responsibility for my actions, and I want a mother. Now imagine if as a man I still wanted acknowledgement and to be the centre of attention and, you know, didn't take responsibility and I was looking for a mother. Anyway, moving right along. But they recognised that their men had to actually understand that they had serious responsibility and they had to look to the future and they had to look after their resources. And they actually needed to form relationships with the feminine. So when I discovered all of this, my medical career was basically all over. And at that stage, I sold my practice and a number of us started looking at running programs. And what we decided to do was to take the core elements that we found in all of these programs and turn it into a modern, appropriate process that we wanted to make mainstream, that we wanted every boy and girl to be able to come to as a normal part of life. And what we found was that there were other people around Australia and there were other people in different places around the world who'd come to the same conclusion and were starting to run these programs. And so what we did was we started getting groups of boys at the point where they were reaching puberty and taking them away with their fathers or a male mentor and different elders, or groups of girls with their mothers or a female mentor, and saying, hey, this is the age where we need to go away, hopefully out into nature, and we're going to do the things that they all did, but we're going to do it in a way that's appropriate today. So the first thing that we did was we shared our stories as a way of passing on knowledge and wisdom. We gave the boys and the girls an opportunity to hear the stories of us, their parents, and of other elders. Stories about how it was for us at their age and the relationship that we had with our fathers and mothers. Stories about what worked, our greatest successes and our greatest failures. Stories about our dreams. Stories about grief and loss. And we also gave an opportunity to have real open conversations where these young boys and girls could share with us what their dreams were, what their visions were, what they really wanted to do with their lives. We can do this. The next thing we did, which always would have happened in a traditional society, was we created challenges for them so that they didn't have to go out and create their own. And there are all sorts of challenges that we can create, whether it's spending time out in the bush on their own, or whether it's having a fire that they keep going on all night, or whether it's going for a big long walk through the mountain over who knows what period of time. But the key is to create a challenge and for them to know that we are there witnessing and supporting and acknowledging them for going through that challenge so that they don't have to do it themselves. And the third thing that we did, and that we always do, and the place where I think we let down our children the most, and which every Indigenous society would have done, was this concept of really recognising that every one of our children is different. And every one of our children has unique gifts and talents. Every one of them is beautiful. Every one of them has genius. And every one of them has a spirit. And it's our role as elders to help them find that spirit. And we don't do that anymore. And we can. Instead, what's happening is they're getting their values from marketing, or from the internet, or from magazines. And we need to be able to tell our children they don't have to be like the person they see on TV or on the internet, that we actually love them for who they are. And that is who we want them to be. And it's such an important thing, and it's something that we so need to do. And I actually want to give you an example. And I'm very fortunate that I have my youngest son here in the audience today, my baby. This is what happens. So Jaden, I just want to tell you how much I love you. And I just want to tell you how proud I am of you. I love that you're so enthusiastic about life. I love that when you're at school and they had a sports day, you were the kid who went in 17 different events. I love that you have an insatiable thirst for knowledge. I love that you're always asking questions. I love that you always want to know how things work. I love how beautiful you are with your friends and how much you care about them and what a great network you have. I love the way with the cousins, how beautiful you are. I love our relationship and how much I just love when we get to have times together. And I really love what you've chosen to do with your life. I'm so proud, and I really feel like you're doing the perfect thing, the thing that's really the best for you to do, and it's going to be amazing to watch you and see what you do. And I just want to tell you that I 100% support you. I think you're brilliant. I think you're hilarious. I think you're beautiful. And I'm really, really proud to be your dad. I really love you, mate. So I have a challenge for all of us. if we can bring this into the mainstream, if we can find a way to actually create, in a simple way, these ceremonies once again, we can make a huge difference. But it's not only for the children. All of us have a spirit. All of us have gifts. All of us have something we really know we want to do. All of us have something that we really know would make us happy. And we also know other people and we see their gifts, and it's often easier to see it in other people. So the challenge is to think about the people who you spend time with and the people that you love. Your family, your friends, the people you work with, and think about what are the things that you admire, respect, and love about them. And then what I want you to do is find a time at some stage, and in whatever way you want to do it, tell them. Tell them what you admire about them. Tell them what you respect about them. Tell them what you love about them. Because I believe, I have no doubt, if we can find a way to really support each other, to find what we're passionate about, to find what really makes us sing, and if we can support everyone that we know to do that, and if everybody's doing that, we can really change the world. Thank you.